And this week's episode of Studio Inter will be discussing the disappointing loss against Parma, the incredible win against Tottenham in the Champions League. We'll be previewing Sampdoria, this week's Moratti, Frog and Moggi, and much, much more. Everything here on Studio Inter, only on SempreInter.com.
Se ne va largo dal destro il tiro, la spinta corta, finito, e gol, 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 e gol. Attenzione, Ronaldo salta anche Marchegiani e mette dentro il 3-0. Andiamo, il principe entra in area, è solo, il tiro, e gol, e gol, e gol, e gol, e gol. Con Ronaldo a battere questo calcio di punizione molto lungo per Zamorano che gira bene al centro, attenzione, il destro, violentissimo, e lo spettacolare gol da parte di Zanetti. La prima squadra che vince qua è la nostra Inter, l'Inter vince, e dillo, campioni d'Europa, campioni d'Europa, campioni d'Europa, campioni d'Europa, campioni d'Europa, i più forti siamo noi. Nulla è impossibile per questa Inter, nulla è...
Benvenuti, bentornati to another edition of Studio Inter. I'm your host Nima Ruzzari. We're back again. We're sorry about last week. Certain things happened that prevented us from doing it, but we're back now, and we'll be back now every week. And joining me to discuss this past week, an eventful week to say the least, is SempreInter.com's very own preview analyst, Mr. Mohamed, all the way from Dubai. How you doing, Mo?
All right, I'm on top of the world, on top of the motherfucking world.
Well, that's awesome. Someone's really happy. And laughing there, and laughing in the background there, making his Studio Inter debut here on SempreInter, is the host of the Alex Donno Show on 560 WKAM in Florida, USA. It's his birthday as well, so a big welcome to Mr. Alex Donno.
Thank you so much, Nima and Mo. It's great to talk to you as well. And what a birthday. I got my present a day early yesterday. That was such a great win.
Indeed you did. Well, before we get into it, Alex, I thought every guest who makes his debut on the show, we ask them to introduce themselves a little bit. How old are you? Where are you from? How did you become an Inter fan?
Oh, I'm 34. I grew up, born and raised in Miami, Florida. My father, though, grew up in Milano. He came over to America when he was in his mid to late 20s. So for me, how I became an Inter fan, you know, a lot of football fans in the United States will choose teams based on certain players they like, or they'll choose teams based on who their friends root for. For me, I always like to say that I didn't choose Inter. Inter chose me. It was a family tradition. My grandfather, lifelong Inter fan, my father, and so for me, it's been Nerazzurri my entire life. It was not a choice for me, so I've been through the great times, I've been through the bad times, and I've loved every second of it.
Ah, spoken like a true Interista. Right. Well, speaking of the good times and the bad times, well, nothing, and that introduction you gave of yourself as an Inter fan, I think that describes 100% what the past 7 days has been being an Inter fan. That horrible shit show, as we can call it now, against Parma, where Inter had the ball, created some chances, but were unable to score, to the amazing, to that unbelievable win yesterday in the dying seconds against Tottenham. But first things first, you know, it's your birthday, so let's talk about the positive stuff. Let's talk about the Tottenham game. I mean, I don't know how you guys saw it, Alex. I was pretty happy with the first half. I thought it looked pretty okay. Then the second half came and Inter conceded that goal. And it started to look like that panicky again. Things weren't working, poor passing, lapse of concentration. And then from nowhere, Mauro Icardi does that. And then it's Pazza Inter, and Inter snatched the win. I'm so keen to hear your thoughts, Alex, on this game.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. The first half, I just thought the pressure, the organization, the quality was, you know, for the most part, as good as we've seen Inter so far this season. I know that there have been some terrible moments this year, but as far as some of the best moments, really the only thing that was lacking, which has been the story all season long, have been the finishes, have been the goals. But you certainly felt good going into the second half. The great feelings of being back in Champions League, the crowd in the San Siro really translated very well over television. You could tell the atmosphere was fantastic, and then Tottenham gets that second half goal where you have a deflection. You had, Handanovic maybe not in the best position, but I can't blame him for a goal that gets deflected in front of his net the way that one did. And then you start to have those same feelings that you had when you conceded first against Sassuolo, when you conceded against Parma late, that you don't know if Inter would have really the quality and the finish to be able to come back and actually find an equalizer, let alone a game winner. So some of those same feelings start to set in, some of that negativity. I mean, maybe I can speak for both of you guys that I was already in my mind conceding a 1-0 loss at that point, thinking, okay, at least we're back in Champions League. At least we have, at least 5 more matches to play before you call it a day in the group stage. And then you have that ball from Asamoah, who I thought played very well for the entire game. He was no Brozovic yesterday, but he was excellent. And then to see that volley from Icardi, I mean, the feelings running through my head at that time, not only was that so important for him with the very slow start that he's had, with the lack of health and the lack of fitness and the lack of goals and the lack of confidence. So I'm thinking that for Mauro, this can really be a breakthrough for him. And then you start to think about, okay, at least we're going to get a result in this game. We're going to get a draw. And then, of course, you have Matías Vecino striking again, who, for as much as I complain about how he can disappear in that midfield and how he can really hang Brozovic out to dry when he's playing as his partner, you cannot argue with the fact that the main reason why Inter is in Champions League is because of that goal he scored against Lazio in what was the 87th minute, I believe. And then he gets a goal in injury time to actually give Inter their first Champions League victory in so long. That to me, I was celebrating so loudly, guys. I have a 6-month-old who was taking a nap in my house at that time, my son, and I was celebrating so loudly that I woke him up from his nap, and I had no regrets whatsoever.
That must have made you really popular around the house with your wife.
Yeah, she wasn't too happy. She was actually also taking a nap at that time, but somehow I woke him up and not her, thankfully.
Oh well, you got thank God for small favors, right? Mo, building on what Alex said in the beginning there. I mean, you've been very critical of Handanovic for him not moving. I've been kind of thinking you might have you've been exaggerating that, but I got to say, yesterday I think that he should have saved that first goal. Sure, there was a deflection, but if you look at the replay, he's there. He should have it. That's why I was so surprised that goal went in. I've always been on the fence on him, with him, defending him to you, but this time I'm on your side. I thought he should have saved that. What are your thoughts?
So yeah, I don't, first of all, before Handanovic and whatever, I just want to thank Alex for that summary of the game. I share his sentiments completely. I woke up 3 kids. It was later in the evening for us, so it was an emotional moment. It was a very, very transcendental moment, almost as sweet as the Lazio game. And so that being said, like you've alluded to, who's listened to this podcast, I'm no Handanovic fanboy. I respect him for the decent shot stopper that he is, but I think that he is prone to a very repetitive and characteristic and idiosyncratic mistake. I think maybe he could have done better yesterday with that shot, but that's not what I don't like him for. What I don't like him for is more the Parma goal rather than the goal that got last night.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Well, we'll get into that. But what talking about? I mean, before we go into the Parma game, I want to stay on the Tottenham thing because I want to talk to you about that goal. Because I'm completely opposite. I don't think anyone in the world could have stopped that goal. But never mind. But don't you think that his to me it seemed that his what made me worried about him yesterday is the fact that it seems that his reflexes, that he's getting on a bit, and his reflexes aren't as fast as they used to be. Because as you said before, he used to be a brilliant shot stopper, and he was good at his reflexes, and he made these amazing saves. But yesterday, it was as if he didn't react. His body didn't react quick enough.
I agree. The reaction was too late, but I think it's, rather than it being a result of his reflexes going, it was just the bounce of the ball and the movement of the ball was so wonky it was very difficult for him to judge at the last moment just how high. That's like neither you or I can go into Samir's mind and understand what was going on the spot. But the way I read it was the ball just moved so oddly, because on TV, for me at least, I didn't know what the fuck was going on. As the ball deflected off of whose leg? Was it Miranda's?
Miranda.
Off of Miranda's trailing leg. I thought, yes, it's out. It's going over the bar. But then it dipped in the last moment. So I think spinning and moving in a really odd way. And maybe, like, physically he should have and would have been able to reach it. But, shit luck.
Yeah. Well, let's not dwell on that.
But that doesn't mean to say that we didn't deserve to get a goal scored. I mean, the run of play in the 10 minutes preceding the goal had been Tottenham on the ascendancy. They're slowly inching further and further towards our goal, and Brozovic and Vecino slowly moving back, and it felt like the goal was coming sooner rather than later.
Speaking of Brozovic, because this is something that I tweeted out, and I know that you will agree with me on this, Alex. I thought yesterday was, if not the best performance in an Inter shirt by Brozovic, definitely top 5, because in my opinion, he was one of the question marks for me going into this game, being in poor form as one of the World Cup players that hasn't really regained form. And him and Vecino, we always know they don't exactly work that well together. But yesterday, Brozovic made up for whatever Nainggolan lacked, and Vecino, and was also the hub and heart and brain of Inter's defensively, and a point of reference in terms of offense as well, as he was the one who created everything. Everything that Inter created began with a Brozovic pass. His inconsistency has been an issue, but looking forward, do you think that have we finally replaced Thiago Motta, Alex?
Yeah, I'm feeling that way. And again, the inconsistency has always been an issue with him. But if we're going by the performance against Tottenham, I felt throughout the 95 minutes of that game that Brozovic was virtually flawless. I was able to find, how they make those master cuts of every time Brozovic touched the ball in the game. I watched back one of those today, and it was just amazing to see every time he touched the football in rapid succession. He was extremely technically sound. He was seeing the entire field, a virtually flawless performance. And the level of difficulty of some of the passes that he completed, and some of the passes that really should have been completed, but maybe his teammate didn't quite make the right run to get there in time, was just a visionary performance. And again, I thought the most impressive part of it was, like you said, that Vecino right up until he scored the game winner was not great on the pitch, and Nainggolan he had his moments, but he was not fantastic on the pitch either. But Brozovic was the engine that made Spalletti's train go yesterday, and I appreciated the performance in the moment, but I appreciated it even more when I watched back every touch that he made. I thought that Asamoah was also very good, but I thought Brozovic was really a step above everyone on that pitch, Tottenham included.
Yeah, I agree. Mo, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'm wondering whether, we talk about Brozovic's, it's been like, we're talking about Brozovic's ability versus his mentality. And, it's maybe it's no coincidence that Spalletti is the one manager who's been able to show us the most of what Brozovic can offer. He's been able to extract the most out of this guy. And it's almost always happened after Brozovic has either been lambasted in public by Spalletti or, almost on a plane off to Spain in the cab, then brought
in January. Yeah, in January.
In January last year, So is he the kind of guy who only performs when under real pressure? Some players are are in there day in, day out, doing the grind, like Thiago Motta, regardless of the match he goes in. But maybe Brozovic is the kind of guy who really has to have, game face on and be hyped up, and, so I don't know, but clearly it's a mental thing with Brozovic. What a capability or ability.
what a 2018 he's had. I mean, if you think about it, he started the January basically almost being pulled out of the taxi on its way to Malpensa airport in Milan by Spalletti, who wanted to keep. I mean, it's unbelievable. And then the World Cup, where he formed that amazing midfield with Rakitic and Modric, which led them to the World Cup final. And then, okay, this season, to be honest, Inter as a whole have been pretty low intensity and in midfield, and not just him. But the way he turned up and the way he turned it up against Tottenham yesterday, exactly like you said, Alex, man of the match performance by a country mile for me as well. Although, as you said, Asamoah close in second for me. No, I was so impressed with the way he, like a hub, how he was the hub of Inter defensively, how he was the hub of Inter going forward. Everything Inter created came first via a pass from that guy, from his left foot and right foot. And exactly like you said, the difficulty, the level of difficulty of those passes was truly impressive. But I mean, if we got to talk about Vecino. Vecino, I mean, like you said, Alex, as everyone has said, we wouldn't even be in the Champions League if he didn't score that header. I don't know. Are we talking? I mean, is Matias Vecino slowly becoming like like a cult hero now? The guy who scores these important goals, and is that what he is? Do you think a cult hero, or do you see a potential that he could improve and actually become a mainstay fixture of this Inter team that leads it to glory? What do you think, Alex?
I think it's going to be the cult hero status, and maybe he has a few more big game-winning important goals to give the squad. But just to me, I've just not seen the consistency on the pitch to think that he's really going to up his level of play. And listen, I certainly have to, after yesterday's performance or yesterday's goal, I have to take back some of the negative things I've said about him. But, during the transfer window, I would say a prayer every night, hoping that Chelsea would pay a 40 million euro fee to bring him over there to reunite with Sarri, and that never came through. I kind of felt like we were stuck with Matias Vecino despite what he did against Lazio last year. But because to me, he disappears too much on the pitch. I mean, maybe you guys feel the same way, but, when he's starting, sometimes you feel like you can go through a 90-minute match and almost forget that Matias Vecino is out there. But then every now and then he can give you a goal like that. And it certainly does up your value for a squad. I mean, Icardi was pretty quiet yesterday before he scored one of the nicest goals we've seen all season in any competition. So, I think to me, Matias Vecino, it's not to say that he's a shit player and he's worthless. He's obviously not. But I don't know if he will ever get above that cult hero status for me. Maybe he has a couple more big goals to come.
But the thing is, like, the guy, every time he scores, it's so important. The equalizer against Roma last season, the winning goal against Lazio, yesterday again against Spurs. It's like he always scores these important, like, defining goals. I don't know, Mo, what's your opinion? Cult hero or the beginning of something great?
Yeah, no, I agree with you guys. Cult hero, but what a cult hero. He's, you alluded to Nima, he's only scored important goals. I don't think he's got the attributes to become an important player consistently week in, week out in a larger project over the years. But I most certainly am very thankful for him, for his contributions so far. And like Alex said, had he been sold this summer, I would have, thanked the gods of the transfer markets. And if he goes away in January or next summer, I will say thank you and wave him goodbye. But yeah, I don't think he's got in such a critical position for the midfield. I don't think he's got what it takes to have a long-term position in the project.
The thing is, though, I'm a little bit, I look at it a little bit differently because I remember him with Fiorentina and also last season. For me, I don't know if you guys remember, but to me, there's something about him that reminds me of when Dejan Stankovic first came to Inter. He's got that kind of tenacity. He's got a good shot. He runs until he can't move anymore. I don't know, without any other, comparisons between the two.
I don't want to call blasphemy right here, Nima.
No. I mean, no other comparisons
Il
between the two.
Drago or Vecino. I mean, like Vecino, like again, we are going to be forever grateful for Vecino's goal against Lazio, and yes, his goal can definitely be one of the more important goals in this particular project's trajectory and story. So I'm not putting him down in any way or putting down his contributions. But to compare him with Stankovic,
No. I didn't mean like that. I mean, I compare him. What I say is that he reminds me of.
I understand. Yeah,
No,
I understand.
it's like the way I remember when Stankovic first came to Inter during the January window, and for a couple of years there, he really struggled. And when Mourinho came to Inter, he was talking about selling Stankovic. I'm saying that what saved Stankovic at Inter through those difficult times was the fact that he scored important goals in the derby and against Juventus. So that's the comparison I'm making. Nothing technical or tactical at all. They're completely different players. I didn't mean like that. It was maybe
I don't know if Vecino has anything else to offer but those important goals. You know what I mean? Like clearly Brozovic, he's next to Gagliardini. Yeah. Clearly the defense is more secure when Gagliardini is ahead of them. So I don't know.
I think that's a really good point. That's something I wanted to raise as well, because in my opinion, Gagliardini yesterday showed how important Gagliardini's positioning is to this Inter, because Vecino doesn't know what positioning is. That's pretty clear. He should play further up the pitch. I don't want to see Gagliardini, I don't want to see Vecino in the double pivot with Brozovic again when we play Barcelona, for example, because we will get destroyed. I mean, Barca's midfield and Barca's short pass system and their triangular tiki-taka will just run circles around Inter. But I don't want to see that. But I think playing Vecino in a slightly a little bit further up the pitch with maybe with in the Serie A, obviously having Gagliardini next to Brozovic, that's the way to go, because Gagliardini, he was missing yesterday. His positioning is so important for Inter, and that frees up Brozovic to do so much more, which I think yesterday we could have used. We could have used that against Tottenham. But we got to talk about Icardi as well before we move on. And I had a thought. I mean, there's no doubt that the goal he scored yesterday is the most beautiful goal he's scored since in an Inter shirt. There's no doubt about that. But for me, it's one thing else. There's a couple of things now that he's been doing for a couple of seasons. When he moves outside of the penalty area, when he shoots from outside the penalty area, when he crosses from outside the penalty area, I think that's when people actually see that this guy knows how to play. I think he's doing himself a little bit of a disservice by just being that number 9 in the box and not moving outside, because a lot of people criticize him. I don't know, quite some people could say justly, some say it's over-exaggerated, whatever. But I just saw, like yesterday, I think his goal, and built on what we've seen these past few seasons, I want to see more of Icardi outside the box and shoot from outside the box as well. What is your thoughts on that, Alex?
I agree, and I think that that's something that is more attainable this season with a much more built-up attack than what we had last year. I mean, when you were talking about last year, the only options of Icardi to be on the pitch was, with Perisic, but it's outside from that, you're talking about Candreva, you're talking about Eder, and really not much else. We're yet to even see Lautaro Martinez really come on and make an impact this year because he's been injured. I think the opportunities for Icardi to play more outside the box and be more creative are there. I mean, you saw it. I think it was in the Torino game when he had a beautiful assist to Perisic, the type of pass that people may forget, that he can actually do things outside of the box. And so, and also for him to get, goals from other places on the pitch and not just have to rely on service and not just have to rely on crosses, which have been inconsistent, I think is important for him. And that goal yesterday, I'm not only thinking about how big that was to help beat Spurs in Champions League, but I'm also thinking of how important that goal is to him really coming on and gaining confidence for this season and for the entire team now, hoping that they can use yesterday's result as a spark plug to actually start performing better in Serie A.
That's a good point. What do you think, Mo? Do you think this is a turning point? Like, has the season turned around now? Is this a starting point?
Difficult to judge. Look, when Spalletti gave his pre-match interview and he said that this could be a potential turning for the season, I thought it was very strange for him to add so much pressure on a match that was already, loaded with pressure. But thankfully we move on. So, you know me, in Spalletti I trust. And if he reckons that this match could have been the turning point or the spark, like you guys said, that we needed to turn the season around, and no one could have scripted this better. The team played acceptably well in the first half, mediocrely in the second half, but then, dug deep as we did against Lazio and Olimpico at the end of the season and got the 3 points. So if there ever is going to be a turning point or like a watershed match, then this is it. And if Spalletti reckons that this could be the match, then there's no better match for it, So yeah, I mean, I don't believe in singular moments as such, but it certainly is going to help the case of Inter moving forward properly in the manner that they should be in the Serie A and in the Champions League.
That's fair enough, but we can't forget about the Champions League and we can't forget about the Serie A because the match against Parma, which I thought we'd go into and discuss now, that Inter's form in the Serie A has been pretty dismal, and the win against Bologna was pretty sluggish. The first half against Torino was brilliant, but was followed up by a horrible second half. And then we have the Parma game where Inter dominated, but didn't really created a lot of chances, had 28 shots, 8 on target, but didn't really create those clear-cut chances. And then, obviously, Inter being Inter, a player that they've loaned out to Parma, a player they believe in, according to Parma sporting director Federico Dimarco, scores the goal of the season at the San Siro. What was that? Before we go into the game to in detail, I wanted to ask you, Mo, because you were alluding to it earlier, that you blame Handanovic for that goal. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
No, I don't blame Handanovic for that goal. I'm saying that goal is more demonstrative of his particular flaw that I allude to always, rather than the goal against Tottenham. Like, I don't blame.
Okay, so how do you mean?
Yeah, so like I've always said, like, it's the cross ball that the ball that comes across Handanovic, usually at ground level, that leaves him flat-footed. And in that particular instant, it was a cross ball. Dimarco shot from the left onto Handanovic's left, so onto the right side. The ball came across Handanovic. Of course, we now know that his view had been obstructed. He's done that many times where the ball comes across him and he just stands there flat-footed, thinking that maybe, like, a misjudgment of where the ball is going to go, above the post, beyond the post, beyond the bar, above the bar, beyond the post, whatever, and the ball just goes into goal. And that's the goal that pisses me off about Handanovic. So Dimarco's shot was fantastic, a phenomenal shot. It reached right in the top corner. It's fine. But the fact that Handanovic stood there flat-footed and watched the ball sail through is what I normally blame him for in that particular kind of shot, if you know what I mean. If I'm articulating myself well.
Yeah, I got you. I get you. Alex, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the Parma game.
Well, to me, it was frustrating because, Icardi sat in the first half, and then, Keita Balde, I think he's going to have an impactful year, but he's not looking comfortable as a striker yet. So it's really a pity that Icardi's fitness is not there yet and that Lautaro is still injured at this point, because you had good service, I thought, from crosses in that first half. You had opportunities that Keita could not finish. And then in the second half, Icardi comes on. And, part of his issue is that he just is not there and certainly was not there on Saturday fitness-wise. But he also wasn't getting the sort of service that Keita was getting in the first half. And maybe if he had had some of the same crosses that were going into Keita in the first half, Icardi could have finished some of those, but the opportunities were not there. And so, I mean, to me, you talked about the possession, which was, I think, 72% in Inter's favor in that game. Just not enough teeth in the attack. Obviously, Parma had 11 players behind the ball, so it was very difficult to break down the defense. But, overall, not enough creativity. The opportunities you did create, the quality in finishing was not there. So it's a little bit alarming to me now that we've seen it play out over multiple games, that Inter clearly have a sound defense. They clearly have an ability to keep possession, but they have not had an ability to capitalize on their chances. So you would like to see, I think at some point, football is a game that is streaky. It goes in phases. You're going to have a few games where they cannot stop finding the net, but at this point they're having trouble finding the net. And again, I think it goes back to what we were talking about, the feelings we had when Tottenham scored the opening goal in Champions League. Once Parma scored on what was just a ridiculous, beautiful goal from Dimarco, that oh no, here it goes. Inter, of course, found a way to not capitalize, and they concede a goal, and this is how it's going to be a 1-0 loss, and it turned out that way. So it was definitely a frustrating way to finish the weekend. And then you have the overreactions on social media. You have some Spalletti out people emerging. All of a sudden, the same analysts who were calling Inter the anti-Juve are now wondering if they're even a Champions League squad. I think people do need to take a deep breath and realize that, the injury bug and the lack of fitness is a problem for this team. A lot of new pieces. We cannot judge them 4 games into a Serie A campaign. So my head was certainly spinning coming out of that Parma game.
Thank you, Alex. You just hit the hammer on the head. Then the hammer on the you really got a bullseye with that, because when I saw this Spalletti out nonsense, I couldn't believe my eyeballs, because it was like you can criticize Spalletti for not starting with Mauro Icardi, and exactly like you said, I tweeted out during the game, I wish that Icardi would have started the game, because the amount of crosses and the quality of the crosses that were being fed into it, Icardi would have finished 1 or 2 of those. And Balde Keita is not a natural number 9, and he shouldn't play there. And then, if you wanted to rest Icardi, you bring him up in the second half when you're 1 or 2 goals up, and you play Keita, and then you can relax. Sure, those are that's different opinions. You can choose to go a different way, but from that point to Spalletti out, I mean, I don't know what the hell people are smoking. You want to sack the coach for. I mean, if they're serious, I can understand if you say that when you're angry, because when you're angry, you're not thinking clearly. But if you're saying that when you're like calm and you mean what you say, and you want to actually sack the coach 4 games into the season, well, I mean, what can I tell you? Then if that's the Inter fan base, then this fan base deserves to finish in 6th, 7th, 8th place every year for the next 100 years, because that's the most idiotic thing I've ever heard. But other than that, I think you summed it up pretty well. I personally think that the Panama game was just one of those glitches. Dimarco has never even scored a goal, let alone a screamer like that. I mean, it's just one of those days that you can't, the bigger problem is exactly as you alluded to, both in the previous in the previous segment about Tottenham, and that's the fact that the midfield is yet to click yet. Inter are yet to click in terms of going forward, and people are not finding, they haven't gelled yet. They haven't found how to play off of each other and find each other in the ideal solution, in the ideal positions to get scoring. But I think that's just a matter of time before that clicks altogether. I wanted to let you have the final word on the Panama game, Mo.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to say, post fact, but I think it was probably our best performance bar the Torino first half. We played well, we created chances, and like you guys have both said, it was just a matter of not finding the final touch. So it's the Parma game is the Parma game. It is what it is. It's shit luck. It's It's happened. It's beyond us. It's moved. Like, let's move the fuck on. If Icardi pitch in the first half, if VAR was used in a manner that is not ridiculous, if there's like a hundred different ifs that can lead to a different result, but the result is what it is, and you learn and you move on, and I think that's the best thing I can say about this game. Just let's put it behind us and not talk about it anymore and move on.
I think we got it. Just a refereeing thing. We're going to get to the VAR thing later on in another segment. I'm sure the faithful listeners of this show will have gathered by now which segment of that show the VAR will be under. But I mean, how the hell what is the VAR referee doing?
Wait,
if he's not?
May I guess? Will it be the Moratti of the week?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, come on. I mean, that's the clearest penalty I think I've seen all year. And if the VAR is not, I don't want to stand on the side of Nicki, who's the referee, head of the Referees Association in Italy, who says that the referees, his point was that the referees, nothing has changed. The referees are just not using the VAR properly. Although I think that's demonstrably not true, because the International Federation of Referees has changed the definition of VAR and instructed everyone to use the new definition, and that's why things are going. But I mean, Rocchi, Rocchi, who's speaking of Inter referees and Inter, this guy has screwed Inter over so hard, so bad for so many years, and that he's the VAR expert and he doesn't give a penalty for Inter after the ball hits Dimarco's hand like that. It's just mind-boggling for me. It's just mind-boggling.
When I wrote the preview and we get to the referees part and VAR assistants or VR officials, and it's Rocky, I'm like, shit, that can be good,
And let me add the irony with that should have been a penalty and a possible ejection for Dimarco, who goes on to score the goal.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have even been on the pitch at that point. I mean, you already brought up the irony of Dimarco being an Inter player on loan to Parma, so of course he's the one to score the game winner, but he shouldn't have even been on the pitch at that time, which only adds to the irony.
Exactly. Right. On Saturday evening, Central European time, Inter play a Sampdoria, who've been one of the greatest positive surprises of the season in the Serie, with a Quagliarella that scores Quagliarella goals, backheeling on volleys, and generally are looking really, really good. And another favorite player of mine who used to be owned by Inter, Gianluca Caprari, who was traded, as everyone knows, as part of the Skriniar deal. He scored again tonight against Fiorentina. This is going to be a really difficult game. And the way Inter have been playing in the Serie A, is it reasonable to ask, to demand that Inter wins this match against Sampdoria, or are you happy with the draw, Alex?
Well, I'm never happy with a draw, and I know that away at Sampdoria is one of the toughest away spots in Italy. To be quite honest, they're excellent at home. I think maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit, but one of the reasons why I'm expecting a victory, not a blowout, not an avalanche, maybe a 2-1 victory, would be Icardi plays so well in that stadium. He did have 4 goals there the last time Inter visited, so maybe I'm thinking a game winner by Mauro is going to be the difference. I don't think it's going to be easy. I don't think it's going to be fun. I don't think we're going to come away from that match saying it was Inter's best performance. But I don't know. Something to me, I might be riding high, guys, off of the Champions League feeling and getting that last-minute win over Tottenham. But I feel good about Inter this Saturday when maybe I shouldn't.
Mo, what about you?
Yeah, sentiments exactly shared with Alex. I think all signs point towards, I'm confident. I think we're gonna go there. We're gonna put it on them the same way we did at the end of last season with Rafinha and Icardi, and this time our Rafinha is going to be Nainggolan. So no, I'm quite positive. if we trust in Spalletti, and Spalletti says that the Tottenham match is a turning point, then why should we not expect or accept anything but a win away? I don't know. We're Inter.
I agree, and I think the thing is though that I think a good thing about Sampdoria is the Sampdoria they will want to attack because they're in a great run of form, and they will take the game to Inter. I think this isn't Parma or Sassuolo we're playing. We're playing a team that knows how to attack, that has a lot of attacking talent, that has a lot of talent period in it, and they won't they won't be content by just sitting back and defending. So I think this will be a pretty open game. And Gianpaolo, as we know, he's a brilliant coach. He will try to beat Inter because he's an Interista and he's always dreamt of coaching Inter. I'm with Alex on this one. But I think a 2-1 draw, a 2-1 win for Inter. Icardi scores 2, Caprari scores 1. What about you, Mo? Prediction, scoreline?
Yeah, I mean, I can, like your 2-1s. I take your 2-1s. I think I can even see it being maybe a clean sheet. But I think at least 2 goals for Inter, and maybe one back by Quagliarella or Caprari, maybe not, but definitely 2 goals for Inter.
Fair enough. What about you, Alex? What did you say, 2-0 or 1-0?
Yeah, I'm going to say 2-1, and I think it's going to be probably around the 80th minute that Icardi nets the game winner for Inter. So I think it's going to make us sweat, it's going to make our blood pressure rise, but it's all going to turn out okay.
Fair enough. Right, so let's move on to the part of the show where we pay tribute as well as rip the piss out of something or someone in the world of football, starting with our birthday boy, this week's frog, presented by Mr. Alex Donno.
This week's frog, a little bit localized, but anyone who was watching the coverage in North America of Champions League yesterday, I'm sure can relate to this. If you were an Interisti watching this and you saw the way that the pregame show on Turner Sports was breaking things down. Now, unfortunately, Inter is not a brand with the recognition in North America that I believe it deserves, given the success of this franchise. But they spent a lot of time talking about Tottenham. They even have a Tottenham fan in Steve Nash, a former NBA player on the panel who was going crazy for them. They spent a lot of time, of course, on Barcelona, who also played yesterday and beat PSV. They even had a video tribute for PSV. And then I barely heard them even mention Inter by name, guys. I think the one piece of analysis I heard was basically looking at Tottenham's chances of winning, saying, well, they're going up against a tough defense because Italian teams also play tough defense. And that's where it started and where it ended. So my blood was boiling when I was watching the pregame coverage. And then to add to that, in North America, the only way to watch that game on live television on basic cable was to watch it in Spanish. So I had to watch it in a language that was not my first or my second language. So hopefully after that victory over Spurs, the North American TV media will start to give a little bit more love for Inter. But as for right now, it is nowhere near there.
Oh my God, yeah. Let's move on to something a little bit more positive. This week's Moratti with Mr. Mohamed Nasser.
Oh my God, he is beautiful! He is beautiful, yeah!
Yeah, so my Moratti for this week is Inter. Pazza Inter, everything about this club. Every small thing. The San Siro that was full and full of the amazing tifo in the curva, even silly Astrid on Instagram, their Instagram stories, everything about this week. The fact that the club has been able to finally compartmentalize. The Parma loss was behind us, and everyone was absolutely positive and like this heaving with passion for the Champions League match. Like the whole thing. The reason why, like Alex alluded to, through the good, through the bad, the reason why we've been fans for this club for such a long time is that, at least for me, there's something more about this club than just football. And it's days like these that just, that you understand why you've suffered through the Mazzari years, you've suffered through all these crazy years, and it's good to be back. It's good for Champions League. It's amazing to get a win.
I remember on the show last season when we lost against Juventus, when Fulvio said that this was the first, that home defeat against Juventus 3-2 when Icardi cried. I remember Fulvio Santucci, one of our other panelists, he said that this was the first time in a long while that Inter played like Inter, despite the loss. And I agree with that. This was a game where Inter was Inter. This time Inter won. This was a game where it was Pazza Inter through and through. Icardi scoring the volley of the season, and then the way Vecino of all people, it was Pazza Inter. It was typical crazy Inter. So I agree. Great Moratti. Right, let's move on to something slightly more negative. This week's Moggi, which I'll be presenting myself. This week's Moggi is the VAR, and the way the VAR has been handled and mistreated by the Serie A officials. It's unbelievable how these referees. It's as if they're like children that have to be watched over like hawks by adults all the time. If you give them the slightest leeway to give them any interpretation, they immediately, or give them any freedom under responsibility, they immediately start messing things up and ruining the league. And that's what we've seen with the VAR. The VAR is basically useless at this point. It doesn't give it doesn't create any justice or anything. It's just, all it does is, it's up to the discretion of the referee. And the reason why the VAR was introduced was to remove the discretion of the referees in these cases. So, in these clear-cut cases, and to make it a Serie A that is even and balanced and based on the competence of the players and not the incompetence of the referees. But basically, that's not going to happen this season. The VAR is basically out the window. So take from that what you will. There is no way Inter will finish higher than third, if you ask me, based on that. And if you know anything about Italian football politics, you can put one and one together. So yeah, for me, it's the VAR, the way the VAR has been treated and the way the VAR is being used this season. And we saw that against Parma. Right. Before we go, I'd like to wish Alex a happy birthday, and it was great to have you on, and hope to have you on more often.
Thank you so much. It was great to talk to you both. And again, the best birthday present I could have asked for was an Inter Champions League victory. So I am still on cloud 9.
Well, I'm happy for you, and happy birthday, and we'll be back next week. So until next week, I'm your host, Nima Tavalli, wishing you a happy weekend, and sempre e solo Forza Inter.